Hi, this is Rev B J, and I am recording this past Sunday's message here at my home. This was the message for July 21st, 2019 at the Unity Church of Manhattan, located at the Unity Spiritual Center of Manhattan at 205 South 4th Street in Manhattan, Kansas. And the title of my message for that Sunday was Letting Go Again and Again. And for the past several Sundays, I've been giving a series of messages on prayer. And I decided that for the 21st, I just wanted to do something different. And I wasn't even sure what the topic of that message is going to be until I experienced something earlier that week. I had discovered that there was a impression. Some people would call it a dent that had gotten an impression on the rear of my car, the driver's side. And I don't know, my ego kind of kicked in there. It wasn't too bad. I probably could have lived with it. But you know, my Toyota Camry Hybrid was a 1918 vehicle. And something about ego, we just wanted to keep that car, that new car look as long as possible. So I thought I'd look into seeing what it would take to get this impression fixed on Chandler. That's the name of my car. So I went to a car body shop in Solanda that had a really great reputation. And I took the car up there on a Friday, and one of the guys there worked with me, took a look at it and said, "Oh, this job would take about 30 minutes, but it will cost you $500. And so I thought about it. Okay. And then I said, sure, okay, let's do it. And so I asked, well, when is the earliest that I could bring it in? He said, well, on Monday. And so I was there Monday at 8 a.m. to have them fix this impression on my car. And so when I got there, the same person that I spoke to on Friday, that same repair person spoke to me, but he took the keys and he said, now, remind me, what is it we're supposed to be doing on your car? And you know, it kind of struck me as kind of funny, kind of strange that no one had made any notes about what we had discussed on Friday about the job that they were going to be doing on my car. And so I kind of made light of it just in sharing something, and I said something like, wow, you know, it must be pretty wonderful when you can work here and leave and not take your job home with you. And when the weekend comes, you can leave here for the weekend and not take any of your concerns or any thoughts about what your work for the next week will entail home with you. And he said, yep, you know, it is, but it wasn't always that way. I could not always do that. And then he began to share with me a story of transformation in his life, how letting go helped him reclaim his life. He shared with me that several years back his dad had gotten ill, and he was asked to take over his dad's business to keep it alive. He knew going into this that it was he thought probably a failing business, but he didn't want to let his dad down. So he took this on, and he disliked the work, but he worked hard at it, so much so that he began to take home the problems, the worries, and concerns he had about the job and what was going on at the business. And the pressure was tremendous on him. And what he realized is that he was working not only to keep the business alive, but also to keep his dad alive. And he found that he was anxious, he was worried, troubled about the business, and he began to take all of this home with him. He found that he had difficulty sleeping. Then he discovered he was having issues with anger, and that was not helpful to bring all that home to his family, his wife and his kids. and he felt lost in this situation. And then he and his family finally made the decision that what he needed to do was let the business go. And just let it go, and if someone bought it, okay. If it failed, okay. And he said the moment they made that decision to let that go, he felt tremendous relief. The weight just dropped from him, and he had a sense that he could reclaim his life, rebuild his connections, his relationships with others, which was on the verge of being destroyed because of not being able to let go of what was going on. And he shared with me that when this decision was made, he felt healed, he felt whole again, and realized that this was the only decision, the best decision that they made to let the business go. And with that, he took my keys and he went off, and I thanked him for sharing, and he went off to go fix my car. I sat down in their waiting area to wait. While I was waiting, I thought about what this gentleman had shared with me. I'm a total stranger, and here he is sharing a piece of his life experience that was traumatic, and sharing with me how letting go healed him, freed him. And then I knew that's what I wanted to speak about on Sunday, July 21st, letting go. And that's what I wanted to share with you. After 20 minutes, this guy came back and to hand me my keys, and he said, well, I fixed the dent. And in my mind, I thought impression, not dent, impression. And he said, I fixed it, but he said, I'm not totally pleased on how it came out. I thought it would be better. Okay? And I'm thinking, uh-oh. And at that moment, I had a really big urge to run to my car, run to the back and take a look to see what happened in that area. Because, it really wasn't all that awful. I could have lived with it. But I restrained myself and didn't run back here. I just realized that whatever he did with this would have made it better, okay? Such is the reputation of this company. So I shook his hand, and he said, and because he was dissatisfied with it, he said, there's no charge to me. They were not going to charge me the $500. But he did say, if I ever went back to this company with something similar to this, that I would have to pay $500 to get that fixed. And so, I was very happy, okay? And I thanked him, and I drove on home. And once I was home, I got out and I took a look at Chandler. And I realized that I couldn't figure out why he was disappointed, because it looked great to me. And then I began thinking that it must have been all these other reasons for me being there. And there were a lot of gifts in this. One was that I had a topic for my sermon for July 21st. The second was I experienced a tremendous lesson, a proof that letting go of things can be a transforming, healing experience for us. And realized that he felt tremendous peace after letting this go in his life. And the other was probably something about my ego self saying yes to a 30-minute job that would cost $500. So there were a lot of gifts in this, and I learned a lesson about letting go from what this man shared of his own experience, and I wanted to share it with you. And now I'd like to share two other true life stories that are also about letting go. The next one that I'm going to share basically, is about a woman named Mary Catherine Backstrom. And she has a Facebook page, and on that she shares a blog or posts about her relationship with her children. And this particular post, she shared her interaction with her 3-year-old daughter, who taught her something about letting go. And this is what she shared. My daughter and I, she wrote, had just had a knockdown, drag-out bedtime hour. Finally, about 10 minutes ago, I put her to bed. And through clenched teeth, I said, I love you, Holland, but not another word from you. You're going to go to sleep now. And I'm done fussing over stuffed animals. And so I turned to go out of the room. And Holland called out, Mommy, she said. And I stopped at the door and turned around. And she said, I do have one more thing that I would like to say. And so, okay, I stopped and I went in. And she said to me, I went in and I saw her, she was standing on the bed with her hands on her hips with this look on her face. And she said to me, Mommy, I forgive you. And right at that moment, I stopped cold. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to say. And so I went in closer and I stood over her bed. She was lying there. And I said, baby girl, do you know what forgiveness means? And she was still sniffling and she muttered, yes. And I said, well, I gotta hear this. And so Holland went on and she said, it means you were wrong, but I'm tired of being mad. So I'm going to go to sleep, and now my heart won't have a tummy ache. And this hit me in the gut. It took me by surprise. Adults have difficulty with how to forgive and what forgiveness means. And there have been so many books written on the topic of forgiveness. And here, my 3-year-old daughter is giving me a lesson on letting go. A lesson about the letting go that is forgiveness. And so, darn it, I went right over and got into bed with her and we snuggled and felt healing. And when I read this book, this story, what I realized brought on the ability for them to let go and to forgive was that they realized that their love for each other was much more important than holding on to who's right in this argument. And so when you and I find it difficult to forgive someone, if we take a look at the relationship that we have with that person, perhaps we too can say, you're wrong, but I'm tired of being mad. I'm going to let this go. I'm going to let go and forgive this situation. And then my heart won't have a tummy ache. I think this is a wonderful story about letting go, about forgiveness, all from a 3-year-old little girl. And the next true story is about a situation that occurred, and this situation occurred on July 12th of this year, so it was just a few weeks ago. The story was posted online by the Albuquerque Fire and Rescue Crew on Friday, July 12th. The title of the post is, "We Heard the Father Scream." Mason Fierro told CNN that he and his co-workers were working on putting a roof on a house in the neighborhood. And they heard a man scream. He said it was a scream like none that you've ever heard. And when they heard this, they dropped everything. And they got down and they ran over to where this house. They can see as they approached flames on this building. And when Fierro got close, he saw in the second floor window, a man was holding his baby daughter out the window, getting ready to drop her from that second story. And he was terrified to do so. He said he ran up over there and up under, and he raised his arms up and he said, "Go ahead, drop her. Let me have her. Let me have her." As he looked up at the father in torment, and the father dropped the baby and he caught her in his arms. And he said, I had no doubt that I would be able to catch her. And when this baby was safe, the next thing they knew, the father he brought over his 3-year-old son, and he was dangling him out the window, and he was going to drop him. And so Ferreira said that he and a co-worker went to work together, and both of them helped catch the 3-year-old boy. And I found this so touching. I can imagine the anguish of the father, that he had to let go in order, he said, he thought, to save his children from the fire and the smoke. And it was because of his love of his children and his faith in goodness, his faith in God, his ability to trust that his children would be safe in the arms of these strangers whom God had brought over to help. And as it turns out, Lieutenant Ruiz of the Albuquerque Fire and Rescue Crew said that the Fierro and his co-workers were heroes because the family was in desperate need. This father needed them, needed help right then, and he wasn't able to wait until the fire and rescue crew arrived. And not only this, but Ferrero and his co-workers then went around to all the apartments in the building, knocking on doors and telling people to get out, letting them know that there was a fire in the building. And Lieutenant Ruiz said that as it turned out, 3 people were taken to the hospital. One was suffering from the smoke inhalation, and the other 2 were the 2 children. But everyone turned out just fine. But he said not so for the apartment building. Actually, the entire building was lost. And so everyone was grateful that everyone in that apartment building was safe. And I find this such a touching story that teaches us something about being able to let go. That when we are trusting in God, trusting in God's goodness, trusting that God as good is at work in whatever situation we are dealing with, we are strengthened and empowered to be able to let go of what we need to let go of to live our lives. Thank you. God bless you. God bless us all as we learn more and more about this process that Unity considers vital as we grow spiritually, and that is learning to let go. Let go and let God.